Hello everyone, my name is Shane, and in this video we're going to be doing an unboxing and I'm going to give my first impressions on the Galaxy Z Flip 7 FE. This phone is available at the time of this video. I'll have some links to it in the description if you want to check it out for yourself. The retail price is $900. It comes in two different colors, a white and this black color here we're going to be checking out today. And there's two configurations to choose from. We have 128GB storage standard and there's an upgraded 256GB model, and both of these come with 8GB of RAM. Inside the box, we have the usual suspects, some paperwork, USB Type-C to Type-C charging cable, and a SIM ejection tool. First impression straight out of the box, really liking the black color here. We have some matte black sidings and a glossy finish on the back here, but I like that Samsung is using an actual black on this compared to a lot of Samsung's phones as of late, like this jet black S25 Ultra. You can see it's really just a darker gray. We actually have a true black here. And here's our first look at the 3.4-inch outer display. And then on the inside, we have a 6.7-inch display. In most aspects, this Flip 7 FE is exactly the same as the Flip 6 from last year. So you can see same exact screen size here, same amount of bezels, same exact layout on each of these. However, a couple minor changes. We have the new camera design here that I much prefer, and we also have a brighter outer display on this one, which is an upgrade that it shares with the Flip 7. It has 2600 nits of brightness on this outer display, whereas the Flip 6 had 1600 nits of maximum brightness. Looks like the hinges on the top are the same size, sidings look exactly the same size, they feel the same weight. Really the only other differences we have is that this has a different processor. The Flip 7 FE has the Exynos 2400, and the previous Flip 6 has the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3. So I'll run this processor through its paces by the end of this video, but what I can say at this point is that on the Flip 7 that has the Exynos 2500, I've had very good performance and excellent battery life in my first couple weeks of use on the Flip 7, so I expect there to be a similar result for this Exynos 2400 and the Flip 7 FE. So it is interesting to see Samsung bring an FE level device to their foldable lineup for the first time, even though it seems very similar to last year's Flip 6. I'm still going to run this phone through its paces, and I'll use it for about a day, and I'll come back with my final first impressions. And it's been a few days now since I first started using this Z Flip 7 FE, so I'm ready to share some of my first impressions with you guys. So it honestly took me longer than usual to come back with my first impressions, but I think with this device it took me so long to because I was trying to figure out what to even say about this device, to be completely honest, because it is so similar to the Galaxy Z Flip 6. So if it feels like there's a lack of information in this video than usual, it's just because I've already made videos on the Z Flip 6 that you can check out if you want to. But even though this is part of the Z Flip 7 series now, it's really just a Z Flip 6 with a different processor, the Exynos 2400. I'll share some of my findings on that here initially, but I'll say straight out the gate, the battery life is very good on these Exynos processors. So if I jump into my battery settings here, I've been using this phone over the past 3 days, got 8 hours of screen on time. I understand a lot of that was just on YouTube, but I've noticed on both the Flip 7 FE and on the Flip 7, I'm getting very good battery life on both of these. So 2 days of use, 7.5 hours of screen time, in addition to 8.5 hours of screen time in 1 day of usage. So even though these new Flips don't have the Snapdragon processor that most people are aware of, I'm getting very good battery life on these initially. Now, taking our side-by-sides here with the Z Flip 7, that is really one of the biggest takeaways with the Z Flip 7 FE I found over the last few days, is that this is really the form factor of the Flip 6. Whether Samsung intended to or not, they now have two size variations of their Flip. With the Flip 7 having these larger displays, it does make it a bit of a different feel in the hand, to be honest, compared to all the past gen Flips. And as someone who has used every prior gen Z Flip, it is noticeably easier to open and close this phone with one hand compared to the Z Flip 7. Not that you can't on the Z Flip 7, it's just a more compact feel here on the Flip 7 FE. And overall, I would say this is the most important aspect to consider if you're looking at these different Flips. Really, the Flip 7 FE is going to be for those who want to have that smaller, more compact Flip. I had some comments in my past videos on this Flip 7 that said they are now missing this more narrow form factor we've had, which for the record, this previous flip design aspect ratio wise was always a super comfortable feel in the hand, even though it meant less screen size for watching YouTube. I've been watching a lot of YouTube on this initially, and the screen is just smaller on this one, especially when watching shorts. You can see how much black bar you have on the top and the bottom. And when watching YouTube in landscape, again, a lot of bars on this Flip 7 FE. I'm just noticing a lot more screen real estate on the Flip 7, especially for watching content, that has just made it a lot more enjoyable on this phone for me. So it really just comes down to your personal preference of, would you like a more narrow phone at the expense of some screen real estate, or would you like that larger screen for some of your regular smartphone usage in a form factor that is still compact and folds up in your pocket? And overall, I just feel like the Flip 7 is offering more this year. Even though it does cost more money, you are getting some substantial improvements on this Flip 7, whereas the Flip 7 FE just feels like a repackaged Flip 6, and they did lower the price on it by $100, so I guess it makes it a little more accessible. It just still feels like what is an FE level device has a pretty high starting price at the $900. Really, the best thing about the FE devices that Samsung offers is that they usually get heavily discounted over time. So when this one gets to be in the $700 range or so, that is when this Flip 7 FE is going to be a very compelling product in my opinion. Whereas at least here at launch, the Flip 7 seems like the better device to go with having much larger displays. The outer display to me is noticeably larger on the Flip 7. So if I go over here to my notifications, look at how much larger the notifications are on this Flip 7 display compared to the Flip 7 FE. Not that this isn't readable or anything, we just have what is a massively improved, in my opinion, screen on the outside here. We have a 120 Hz refresh rate on this Flip 7, which makes it very smooth. Once you set up this app launcher, you have all of your apps on your outer display that you'd want to use. Also, a big key difference between this Flip 7 and Flip 7 FE I want to share is that with all the previous generation flips, when you wear sunglasses and look at the inner display outside, there would always be this effect happening on the display. It is extremely distracting. On this Flip 7 now, this problem is completely gone. So this is honestly a huge upgrade that I have not seen talked about elsewhere. So it is worth mentioning, on the Flip 7 FE, we do still have this sunglasses effect. So this is another reason why I am heavily leaning towards the Flip 7, at least here initially. Even though some of these arguably minor differences aside, the Flip 7 FE on its own is still a very impressive foldable phone for what it is. So if you are interested in this Flip 7 FE, you're not wanting the larger phone, this is still a very similar flip experience. We do have the same camera hardware on here on this Flip 7 FE. So we have the primary 50 megapixel lens. Shots out of this are looking good initially. We also have a 12 megapixel ultra wide, and then in the viewfinder there is a 2x digital setting, a 4x digital. This is how these look. And then there's up to a max of a 10x digital zoom. Really, one of the only physical differences that came to this Flip 7 FE is that the outer display brightness now matches the inner display at 2600 nits. We had 1600 nits on the outer display of the previous Flip 6. But that is really one of the only physical differences I could find, in addition to it having less RAM, actually 8 gigabytes of RAM compared to 12 on the Flip 6 from last year. But in every other way of this phone, it is really just a repackaged Flip 6. So overall, first impressions, I do think this phone will be a very compelling device once it gets down into about the $700 range or so. But for the $900 retail price and it being an FE level device is just kind of conflicting. Usually Samsung's FE line is more affordable, but I would argue it's not that much more affordable compared to the very premium experience of the new Flip 7. But I'll be curious to hear your thoughts on the new Z Flip 7 FE in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. Let me know if you want to see any more content on the Flip 7 FE, and thanks so much for watching. Take care.